Nowadays, creating interactive prototypes is a breeze. Software like Figma and Produt enable the creation of complex interactions for very realistic prototypes. But what are interactive prototypes really? Just to be clear, in this video we're not discussing low-fidelity prototypes like paper prototypes or that sort of thing. We're talking about digital interactive prototypes. It's usually a user interface that you can interact with. It's clickable, scrollable, and it displays the interactions how the designer intended in their head. They're usually used for usability tests, presentations to stakeholders, but that's what we're going to discuss in this video. Interactive prototypes enable you to go beyond the frame and really illustrate how you would like a component to behave, if it's going to open, if it's going to expand, what's going to do. And this makes it much easier to explain to people how your interface is supposed to behave. I'd say to never assume that people understand how your component works because it's obvious, because most of the time it isn't. And having that extra level of clarity, going beyond the frame, beyond the artboard, is so important. Okay, second, interactive prototypes are so important for design documentation, and this goes hand in hand with clarity, the first point, but in this case, I mean for developer handoff, design system, such things, they can really benefit for having an interactive prototype for certain components or parts of the interface. Having an interactive prototype attached to a document, and you can easily do that, for instance in Figma you can drop a comment with a link to that specific part of the prototype, will help developers understand how and why a component needs to function that way. Like the previous example, why it should open a drawer instead of a modal, so it's much easier for them to move forward. Okay, third, interactive prototypes are an excellent tool for performing usability tests. You can do that either remotely with a Meet call or an app like Useberry, or in person. You can either open your app in your phone or your computer and look at the user using it. It provides so much insight on what's doing good and what's not doing so good. Like sometimes we think it's obvious that things are super gonna work out and the final user don't really understand. Sometimes they think something is clickable and it's not. Sometimes it's the opposite. So it's really powerful to be able to see that in action way before you start developing the actual thing. So interactive prototypes enable you to do that really easily, really quickly. You can do that remotely, in person. There are many tools you can use to perform usability tests with interactive prototypes. And finally, they're an excellent tool to be used at presentations. Both presentations like to stakeholders when you're explaining your design decisions and showing off a new design. Interactive prototypes makes it much easier for them to understand how that thing is going to behave, what's clickable, what's not clickable, what's gonna animate, what's not, so it makes it much easier. And you can also use that to present in your portfolio. Like one thing I love to do is to open the prototype and record a GIF of my screen using the prototype, so I can create like micro animations of 3 to 5 seconds showing off how a component behaves. It makes a much richer experience and much easier to explain your thought process and your design decisions. Of course, these are not the only reasons why you would want to use interactive prototypes. You can get really creative with them, especially now with Figma, with variables. I see someone even did a flipboard game all inside of Figma. That's crazy, but you can get really creative with interactive prototypes. So there you have it, the role of interactive prototypes in product design. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. See you next time.